please welcome Ayo McKinney.
Has something you loved ever made you feel invisible? I was in the 3rd grade in 2009 when the final project for my school year was to write and illustrate a book. I was excited because I always had love for comics and animation, so the chance to copy that in my own art form brought excitement to my heart. I used that excitement to fuel a flurry of creativity, and I drew the first character that came to my mind. Mechanical pencil lines turned to a figure, black and gray crayon for the costume, a fiery red and orange for the hair, but then I paused when it came to choosing the skin color. I saw that I could make a character that looked like how other characters had always been portrayed to me, or I could make a character that looked like me. I could either have my character be dictated to me or created by me. Which would you choose? I chose to live in creation. This character's name is Johnny X Ostinato. He's the best spy at an organization called the Super Spy Agency, or SSA. I ran out of creativity, I guess. Creating Johnny X brought me to the common realization that there aren't many Black characters, even fewer that shared my experiences. Looking back, Johnny X Ostinato was my first taste of Afrofuturism, and with it, I finally felt like comic books and animation could love me back. So, what is Afrofuturism? Afrofuturism is an exploration of the African diasporic experience via the intersections of technology, science, race, and the arts. It's a cultural expression and a method of critique. The aim is to reclaim our past for creating potential futures. In short, Afrofuturism is like time travel. Think Black to the future. So, while studying at Xavier University of Louisiana, an HBCU, or historically Black college and university, I studied psychology. When I was doing this, I found that there were not many psychological models for or by Black people. A psychological model, like the one you see, is something that scientists use to treat people or for research. So I was interested in Afrofuturism when I decided to study it by myself, since Xavier didn't have a class for it. And it was during this research that I read a book called Afrofuturism Rising by Dr. Isiah Lavender III. In it, he defines Afrofuturism as a narrative practice that enables users to communicate the interconnections between science, technology, and race across continents, centuries, and cultures. I tell you the definition so that you can see the consistencies. Dr. Isiah Lavender III has 3 key aspects that we will use in understanding Afrofuturism. They are the network Black consciousness, the transhistorical feedback loop, and the hope impulse. We'll use these to launch our minds into bringing together the healing capabilities of psychology and the spectacular possibilities of Afrofuturism. But before I tell you more about the first aspect, which is the network Black consciousness, I want to take you to Johnny X Ostinato. My 4th grade year, right after his birth, I got another chance to write a book, and I wrote a sequel called X1, which is about a clone of Johnny named X1. So, what's the premise of this? Johnny had been missing for months, so the SSA desperately needed their best agent. Breaching Johnny's trust and breaking international law, they cloned him. And X1, luckily for them, had all of Johnny's abilities. Unfortunately for them, he also had his traits, including his rebelliousness. Plot twists, betrayal, and the crazy action of my 4th grade brain led me to realize that interwoven within this story is the theme of relationships. Think about it. If someone made a perfect reflection of who you are, what type of relationship would you have with that thing? What if it reflected the best of you or the worst? So relationships and mirrors are at the core of the network Black consciousness. In psychology, there's something called mirroring. Imagine you're engaged in communication with someone. Your arms are crossed, your feet are pointed a certain way, and you're talking to that person and you unconsciously do the same thing. That is mirroring. In a group setting, if we all decided to do much of the same thing, again, unconsciously, psychologists would call that the mirror effect. Our internal worlds, our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, they create the lens through which we view the external world. The outer is a reflection of the inner. This is at the core of the network Black consciousness. And remember, it's about relationships. So, what is the network Black consciousness? I'm glad you asked. So, think of telepathic Black Twitter. Everything's going on in our minds. Dr. Lavender says that the network Black consciousness brings together three aspects: Afrofuturism, communal memories, and the most important part, culture. Now, I want to bring it back to Johnny X and X1. Remember that they're perfect mirrors of each other. They mirror the best. But growing up as a Black kid in the South, going to school in Memphis, which is one of the most segregated cities in the United States, didn't always have the luxury of mirrors that reflected the best of me. So in 2009, in the third grade, I was one of 4 Black kids in class. It wasn't until 2012 that I was at a school that mimicked the demographics of Memphis appropriately. But I found that the type of loneliness changed. It was no longer about numbers. It was about authentic connections. See, at this school, Blackness was something that was dictated to me by the stereotypes of white peers and the underdeveloped understandings of Blackness by my Black peers. So I didn't really have healthy mirrors. This is something that many Black kids and adults can identify with. So, lucky for me though, I was able to go to a school, Xavier University, where I could find reflections that I could be proud of. So at Xavier, the network Black consciousness provided me the means to create authentic and meaningful relationships with folks that were asking similar questions. But being in college and just people, everyone can relate to this. After you've had a day interacting with people, what do? You go home, put your feet up, and you consume some form of media, whether that be on a streaming service or listening to music or reading a book. Now, at the core of all of this media and entertainment that you take in are images and symbols. If you recall the part of the definition of culture that I put up, one of the biggest parts of culture are our symbols. And oftentimes when we're taking in this media, we're not aware of the relationships that we have with them. The network Black consciousness tells us to call this into question. So you'll see 2 examples of healthy symbols or reflections that we can all look towards, or Black Americans can look towards. Firstly, you have The Little Mermaid, which came out recently. That gave Black girls a symbol that was neither hypersexualized nor reduced to the sidelines. Then another example from right here in Memphis is artist Kenny Wayne Alexander. He bridges contemporary and traditional art forms to create digital worlds that show the surreal nature of the mind. His art is Afrofuturism in play. It shows you the technological prowess and the artistic innovation of Black minds. As you can see, Afrofuturism and psychology call together the positive relationships that are necessary for us to have good health. That creates something where we can move through space well, but also time. So this happy dude on the screen is Rex X Ostinato. The name's just, Johnny was a good hit. Anyway, so Rex X Ostinato is Johnny's dad. What the special thing about him is that he was actually the SSA's premier agent before Johnny. He would sit little Johnny down and he would tell him this crazy past stories about, being a super spy that galvanized Johnny's present and allowed him to create an ideal future for himself. You see, stories are a very powerful thing. Dr. Lavender defines the transhistorical feedback loop as our ability to take images, text, and art from the past, presently look at them, and create certain futures. I'll give you an example. Imagine right now, like me, you're very, very hungry. You're thinking about what to eat in the future. That's time travel. Now, if your neighbor forgot to brush their teeth and you can smell what they had for breakfast, that's another unfortunate type of time travel. But now you see what us Afrofuturists mean when we say that the past, present, and future exist all in one, all in you. Another powerful example is the first Black woman to ever go to space, on your left. That is Mae Carol Jemison. She is a physician, engineer, and former NASA astronaut. She credits Nichelle Nichols on the right, who played Nyota Uhura in Star Trek from 1966 to 1969 as her inspiration for becoming an astronaut. To contextualize for you, Nichelle Nichols was so prominent at the time that Martin Luther King Jr. allowed his children to stay up late to watch one show, and it was Star Trek because she was in it. Dr. Jemison was able to pull from the fictional experience of a Black symbol to create a prestigious and adventurous future for herself. Now, you might ask, what does this have to do with psychology? Another great question. There's something in the field called narrative psychology. The definition is up, but in short, it is an examination of how we use stories to create meaning for ourselves. And our meaning is found in shaping our memories from past events, which is how we understand ourselves in the present and project into the future. Sound familiar? Narrative psychology is used across the discipline in cognitive psych, developmental psych, and personality psych, just to name a few. This multifaceted nature to narrative psychology shows you how it could connect very easily to Afrofuturism. Imagine sitting with Black clients, helping them seize our stories so that we can foster hope for our futures. Hope is central to the Black experience. Think about Johnny X and all the heroes that we think about. They are fighting for a better tomorrow. Martin Luther King Jr. said, if you lose hope, you lose the vitality that keeps you going. You lose that courage to be. You lose that quality that helps you go on in spite of it all. The APA, or American Psychological Association, defines hope as the expectation of positive experiences, which echoes Dr. Lavender when he talks about hope being a charged impulse representing the desire for life, liberty, and knowledge. I want to take you to my last semester at school. This past May, I was at Xavier and I was sitting in the library with a friend of mine who we'll call Chris. Chris is like a modern day philosopher. Everything he says makes no sense, but it's cool. Chris and I were talking about a very heavy topic though. It was death. He introduced the topic to me by saying how he would take nightly walks throughout New Orleans. On these walks, he would see tucked away architectural gems, the beautiful graffiti around the city, and he would meet weird warehouse people. But he said to me, on these nights, I can't help but take in the beauty. But as a Black man, I'm also thinking about death. We talked a little bit more about it, and I asked him what he thought we could do. Him being a modern day philosopher, I was expecting an answer I would not understand. But he simply looked at me, smiled through his Jason Momoa beard, and he said, we hope. This is what we need as people of African diasporic descent. It's hope. Afrofuturism and psychology, bringing them together, can provide us the basis for a form of art therapy that would allow us to take in our cultural context and thrive. It could be concretized as follows. Imagine that we use Afrofuturism to teach Black clients how to change our perceptions of time. Then, using that, we could be educated on our history and see the artistic, social, and political expressions that have been centered to our cultural identities. After that, we could choose an art medium, whichever one we want, and express our ideal futures. Then we have something tangible to look at. And from there, you simply act. My hope is that you see how Afrofuturism could help situate psychology and make it more culturally competent for African Americans. Everybody deserves hope. Everybody deserves symbols that they can aspire towards. Everybody deserves mirrors that they can be proud of. Thank you.